Lieutenant General Raja Subramani, Vice Chief of Army Staff, Dr. Samir Kamath, General Khandare, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the media, good morning. I'm delighted here to be this morning with you at the second edition of the India Defence Conclave, organized by the Economic Times. I have been asked to share my thoughts on the topic, that is technological transformation of the Indian Navy in the coming decade. And I intend to cover my remarks first, of course, by covering the twin aspects of technology and transformation, how these two aspects are linked together in India's growth from a maritime perspective, from the perspective of the Indian Navy, and to bring out what the Indian Navy as a future-ready force is doing to address a whole variety of challenges that it faces today and leverage the opportunity to transform for tomorrow. As you know, ladies and gentlemen, rapid advancements in technology and the democratization of high-tech applications and tools have together bridged the asymmetry in conventional capabilities between bigger and smaller nations. New and emerging fields such as hypersonics, artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, advanced material and manufacturing, space technology, quantum computing, robotics, and autonomous vessels have made available to all parties a wide array of options, all of them available off the shelf at relatively affordable prices. These could be deployed seamlessly across military and civilian domains to target domestic infrastructure, financial systems, cyber services, and communication networks. Accelerated progress in niche and disruptive technologies has catalyzed a transformation in the character and the conduct of war and warfare. The evolution of war from its classic sense of being purely a military activity to becoming a multi-domain national endeavor has led to a blurring of the distinction between peace and war, civil and military, public and private, real and virtual, and legitimate and illegitimate. This is in clear evidence in all the violence and conflicts that we see across the world, the Russia-Ukraine war and the Gaza-Israel conflict. Parallelly, economic sanctions, trade wars, and technological restrictions have become tools of national coercion. Cyber and digital media are being employed increasingly to fuel systematic disinformation and misinformation so as to shape desired narratives and target adversaries globally much further from the national boundaries. For us, therefore, in the profession of arms, continuous and holistic assessment of the changing character of war and warfare and adoption of mitigating and leveraging technologies and strategies has never been more important than it is today. How is India poised in these transformational times, and what is its growth trajectory? Why should the ordinary Indian be concerned about the changing tech space and the evolving nature of warfare? Let me try and connect these dots for you. Statistically speaking, India's GDP today is about 3.94 trillion US dollars. We aim to become a 30 trillion US dollars by 2047, as has been said repeatedly. This is a nearly 8-fold increase. Our exports are growing, with merchandise worth a record 447 billion US dollars having been exported in 2022-23. As per the Federation of Indian Export Organizations, the FEIO, India's exports may grow to between 500 and 510 billion US dollars in this current financial year. It is clear, therefore, that an export-enabled economy will be the prime mover for us to achieve our national vision of Viksit Bharat at 2047. It may interest all of you to note, ladies and gentlemen, that 95% of India's trade by volume and about 70% by value is currently seaborne. All of that goes on waters. This is set to increase with enhanced commerce. It is clear, therefore, that for us, free access to ports and secure sea lines are critical to our economic well-being and economic growth. India's expanding economy depends that our national interests remain safe, secure, and protected across a significantly wider geography than ever before. And all of that is accessible largely through the oceans. National power and economic progress depend today on the security of maritime trade, energy lines, and resources. And a strong navy ensures maritime security that protects maritime growth, maritime trade, and our national interests. This symbiotic relationship between economic strength and maritime power is established as a fundamental tenet of international relations. We, of course, in India know that this was exercised by the renowned Chola kingdom as early as the 10th and 11th centuries, in perhaps the first exposition of the maritime virtuous cycle. The concept was popularized many centuries later by the American strategist Alfred Thayer Mahan in the 19th century, and has since been the philosophy by which modern nations have perceived the roles, relevance, and utility of the Navy. Suffice it to say, a strong Navy is a prerequisite for safeguarding national economic interests, for fostering trade and commerce, and attracting investments in the country. What is my key point here? An aspirational India, therefore, needs a credible, capable Navy for realizing its dream of becoming a developed nation by 2047. What is the Indian Navy going to do to transform itself technologically? As a formidable armed force of the Union of India, of a progressive and self-reliant nation, we cannot afford to be dependent on external sources for meeting our security requirements anymore. Atmanirbharta in defense is now no longer merely an economic imperative, it is a strategic necessity. And this is not just a personal view, it is a stated policy of the Government of India. There is therefore a concerted focus in the Indian Navy to synergize its efforts with those of other government agencies, the scientific community, and Dr. Samir Kamath is here, who's a strong pillar of everything that we do, researchers, the academia, and the industry, as well as, of course, as we heard this morning, like-minded, friendly foreign countries, to achieve self-reliance in existing core technologies with the aim of plugging immediate gaps while simultaneously designing niche and disruptive technologies to be ready for future challenges. Through a three-tiered organization under the Naval Innovation and Indigenous Organization, or the NIIO, our aim is to seamlessly merge the elements of innovation, indigenization, and self-reliance to create self-sufficiency, or what we call Swavalambana. The Technology Development and Acceleration Cell of the Indian Navy is the body that executes all this thought into action. As all of you are perhaps aware, the Navy has organized 2 seminars called Swavalambana to bring together the startup ecosystem, MSMEs, and the industry to generate technological solutions to its operational needs. During the Swavalambana seminar organized last year, for example, we successfully showcased 75 prototypes of DISC 7 challenges. DISC is, of course, the Indian Defense Startup Challenge, and these are challenges that are given to the Indian industry based on our operational requirements. And the Indian industry, of course, responds by giving us technological solutions. And we showcased successfully 75 prototypes in the last year's seminar alone. We currently have more than 100 challenges for MSMEs and startups under what we call the IDEX scheme, which is Innovation for Defense Excellence, with about 15 solutions worth about 1,355 crores being granted acceptance of necessity. We also have set up 2 special task forces within the Navy to provide top leadership-driven focus to our indigenization efforts. Technological transformation of the Navy through indigenous effort is our core focus area, and that shall remain so into the far future. At present, we have 143 indigenous projects that are being pursued, worth about 2,500 crores under various Government of India schemes, translating into procurements worth about 3,500 crores. This is just illustrative. The figures may vary here and there, but this is just illustrative of the direction in which we are proceeding. We also have successfully indigenized more than 30,500 items, big and small, important and not so important, through the Indian defense ecosystem. An area where the Indian Navy has championed self-reliance is in domestic warship building. The Indian Navy's first indigenous warship, INS Ajay, was built in India more than 6 decades ago. And from then on, indigenous shipbuilding has been some kind of an article of faith for the Indian Navy. Today, we have about 64 ships in progress at various stages of construction in Indian shipyards across the country, and the Indian Navy is scheduled to commission about 1 indigenously built ship in a month in the coming year. The Navy today has the ability to design, build, and operate all types of warships and submarines, ranging from complex platforms like aircraft carriers and nuclear submarines to stealth destroyers, amphibious craft, and special purpose vessels. It is with justifiable pride that I state that we are only one of 6 nations in the world that designs, builds, and operates an indigenous aircraft carrier and an indigenous SSBN on its own. The recent commissioning of the second SSBN, INS Arighat, exemplifies this commendable national capability. Our transition from being a buyer's navy to becoming a builder's navy has helped not only support and promote the Indian defense industry, but also has spurred national economic growth and stimulated industrial skilling in shipbuilding and ship repair. For instance, INS Vikrant, India's first indigenously built aircraft carrier, alone engaged about 500 MSMEs and created employment for over 12,000 people from all kinds of ancillary industry, in addition, of course, to the 2,000 shipyard personnel that were involved in its construction. This resulted in an employment generation multiplier effect of 6.4, which is very significant for a national growth. Similarly, every rupee spent on shipbuilding triggers the circulation of 1.82 rupees. This plow back into the society in the form of employment and growth of ancillary industry are the first and second order effects that have enabled the growth of an ecosystem of technology development, scientific research, and collaboration among investors, designers, manufacturers, and skilled workforces. To put things in perspective, and yet again I say this merely as an illustration of a point, the Navy's current order book of nearly 1.5 lakh crore rupees will result in the circulation of almost 2.73 lakh crore rupees in India's shipbuilding sector as a whole. Looking into the future, our aim is to create a well-balanced, multi-dimensional, networked force that is capable of delivering ordnance on target and effects across the full spectrum of conflict. Towards this, the Indian Navy is developing niche capabilities across all 6 domains that it seamlessly operates in. First, on the seas, the Navy will continue to acquire and expand its blue water capabilities, such as aircraft carriers that are suitably supplemented by the next generation destroyers and frigates to project force and undertake precision strike missions from standoff ranges at sea. 2, below the seas, acquisition of credible underwater deterrence capability represented by SSNs and conventional submarines with a potent and reliable nuclear triad ensured by SSBNs. 3, above the sea, shore-based, carrier-borne, as well as integral naval aviation assets to undertake maritime missions across the operational spectrum from the air. 4, space-based capabilities. This is for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and to enhance our maritime domain awareness and battlespace transparency in the Indian Ocean region. 5, in the cyberspace, where we'll seek to develop sharp, offensive, and robust defense capabilities. And finally, the design, development, and deployment of autonomous and uncrewed lethal systems with optimum man-unmanned teaming in all domains. To conclude, ladies and gentlemen, I quote our Honorable Raksha Mantri, who said very evocatively that we were once known as a landlocked nation with seashores, but today we can be seen as an island nation with land boundaries. India has been and will be a maritime nation whose growth is intrinsically linked to the seas. We are the only nation in the world to have an ocean named after it, and to ensure the security of this ocean and everything that rides on it and beyond, the Indian Navy's primary focus and responsibility shall be that in the years to come. I want to assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that the Indian Navy today is a force poised for the future. We are ready to respond, not merely react to any challenge that is thrown at us. And we will do our very best to strengthen ourselves, transform our capabilities, and provide the nation the maritime security it needs and protect national interests anywhere, anytime, and anyhow. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.